Hello again. Today I'm going to do some more distressed ink looking coloring with Copics. For the blues today I'm going to be using B95, B91 in my colorless blender plus W3 and W5. And this little Tilda is from Magnolialicious and she's in the pet collection. So again with the distressed inks, there's a lot of darker colors that kind of bleed to the edges. So we want to create, turn this a little bit, the same kind of look with our markers. And I'm using B95 to just kind of come in here and do these edges. I'm not going to use a lot of this color. Remembering that the Scandinavian look has a lot of white, very, very light colors in it. This is B91, and I'm leaving these little wrinkles that pop up in her dress. Those are going to be very light, as the light would be hitting them the most. I'm just going to come up and shadow this a bit. And then I'm going to take my colorless blender, and I'm going to use the brush end, and I'm going to take the B91 and use the chisel end, and I'm going to pick up color. Lots of times you can pick up color right from the little tip here. You can go directly on the chisel tip also. And that's just going to give me a very pale color, because on the Copic color chart, B91 in this family is the lightest that you can find. So unless you mix your own, which is possible, you just take an empty marker, mix some colorless blender, and some re-inker of B91, you can make the lighter color, but you can also do it this way. Remembering that if you don't have certain colors on hand, this technique will help you kind of make the colors that you need. And you can see I'm kind of soaking my colorless blender into the paper a little bit, because I don't want any harsh lines, so I want a very soft look. So I'm really wetting the paper with the colorless blender. And then I'm going to come back in with the B91 and just feather very lightly over those darker areas. And go back in and do some more blending. And when you're happy with the color of what you've got, you can stop. It just depends on how much color you want on her dress. I want to keep it pretty light. And then I'm going to take my W3 and I'm adding a W1. I'm going to take W3 and I'm going in just at the corners to kind of distress it and darken those edges up a little bit. Just a teensy bit of the W3. Not too dark. And then I'm going to take W1 and right over what I've done, I'm just going to kind of brush it out. Almost feather, very light touch. And then I'm going to go back in with the B91 and I'm just going to go over the W that I just laid down. And there's that part of her dress. Let's go in and do the top apron part. This is B95. Just coming in along the edges a little bit. And then I take B91 and just very, very lightly, I'm not putting a lot of ink onto my paper, I'm feathering it. And then I'm going to take my colorless blender and I'm going to blend it out. And take W1, go in those corners again to distress it just a little bit. and then I'm going to do the greens. I'm using YG63 and YG20 in my colorless blender. And if you have a little bit of ink on your colorless blender, rub it around on your scrap paper and it'll come right off. So no worries there. This is YG63, and I'm going to come in just along, I don't want to use a lot of this color, the edges of where it would be shadowed. Here it would be a little bit creased and shadowed here. And again, very light feather touch. I'm going to take my G20, one of my favorite greens, and I'm just kind of flicking from what I've done out, because I still want a lot of that white color to show. Same thing here. Just kind of flicking down. And then I'm just going to lightly go over all that. And then I'm going to use this technique again, except I'm using my G20 and I'm going on to the YG63 and just blending that. Then I'm going to take W1, and again I'm going into those parts that might need a little bit more darkening, shadowing, very lightly. You don't need a lot of that. And then back in again with the G20 over what I've done. And then I'm going to go down into her bottom part of her dress, and where the apron overlay or the jumper overlays her dress, it would be shadowed. And of course a little bit on those edges. And then I'm flicking my G20 very lightly, this is a small space, down in, and then I'm lightly going to lay a little bit of color there. Coming back in with my W1, those same shadowed areas, and then I'm going to take G20 and just lightly feather over them. So there we have her jumper, the blues and the greens, and now I'm going to do a little bit different on her hair this time. E59, E55, and YR20. I'm going to start with my middle color this time because the E59 is very dark, so I only want a little teeny bit of that, so I'm going to leave that for last. I'm going to come in here, and when I color hair I use the very tip of my brush. I don't use the broad end, and I just kind of feather lightly on all those edges, kind of feathering up the lines of the hair. Remembering we want a lot of light space in her hair. And then I'm going to take my YR20, and again I'm just kind of flicking over what I've done and up towards the center and down towards the center. These little curls here. I want her just a tad bit darker in some shadowed areas, so I'm taking my E59 and I'm really just using that tip point just a teensy bit along the edges and up. And this just gives her hair a little bit of depth and shadow. I'll come in here, do a little here. I'm going to go back in with my E55 and going over what I've done and flicking down. Remembering that I don't want her hair dark. I just want it to have dimension and look shadowed. And then I'm going to take the YR20 and I'm just going to lightly blend. And that's how I would do her hair.